Hello and welcome back to the Now We Know Show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
I'm Buzz.
And I'm Jack.
And this week we are taking a journey to Mars.
We've been looking forward to this episode for a while, haven't we?
Yeah, that's true. It has been in the running for a while.
It's been in the making for a while.
It's a subject that I'm fascinated by.
Yes, me too.
You know, and I have been since I was a kid. You know, I've watched all these sci-fi movies dating back to the 50s.
Very much so.
You know, and you saw Forbidden Planet and things, and your mind starts to think, oh, you know, wouldn't it
What's
be
out
cool?
there?
What could be there?
You know, wouldn't it be cool to go to other alien planets?
And don't forget Total Recall.
Of course, Total Recall, hence why we named this particular one Get Your Ass to Mars, as a reference from Total Recall.
Yes.
That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall, by the way.
Yes, not the remake.
Not the remake. We don't talk about the remake. So, yeah, we're going to see if we can get our asses to Mars.
Yes.
Is it a possibility? Is it a reality? Could it happen? How are we going to do it? You know,
Is it dangerous?
Yeah, is it
dangerous?
feasible?
Should we do it? You know, can sci-fi become science fact?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be
You know,
good.
That's what we're discussing. And as always with the Now We Know show, we're discussing it from a layman's perspective. You know,
Yes.
None of us are specialists on this particular subject, and we like to discuss things as if we're sitting around a table, having a dinner,
Open discussion.
at the pub, wherever. People always have discussions, and they like to have those discussions in a free and easy manner, layman's perspective, and we do our best to sort of sift through all the information and come out, hopefully, with some answers at the end of the day that are both scientific and factual.
Yes. Which is why we'd like to hear from you as well.
Oh yeah, from
As
our
the
listeners,
audience, we'd like
because
to hear
that's the
your
thing.
feedback.
Yeah, because if we don't get it exactly right,
Yeah.
and you pick up on something while listening to this podcast, then that's exactly what we want. We want you to feed back and
We want to learn more.
put us straight and teach us new things about the subjects that we talk about. So, Mars. This is the enigma, isn't it?
I would very much like to see the human race get to Mars.
Okay. What do you think we'll get to Mars in our lifetime?
That's
I
a
hope
good
so.
question.
I hope so.
That's a good question, because that's something, as I said, from being a kid, that I've always thought, Mars. I mean, I remember the time when the first sort of images of Mars were being shown on the TV.
The
and
red planet.
They were very blurred, and it was people used to sort of guess that there were canals on Mars. I even think, and again, listeners put me right on this. Patrick Moore, who I think everybody in the UK knows Patrick Moore, Sir Patrick Moore, fantastic, brilliant astronomer, and he's passed away now. But even in his early days, I believe that Patrick Moore, when they were looking at the images of Mars and they were dark, sort of shaded areas, because the clarity is nothing like it is now.
Yeah,
we have obviously rovers on Mars, we've got Mars orbiters,
High-power telescopes, yeah.
Mars orbiters, but back then, even Sir Patrick Moore was suggesting that maybe these patches were patches of vegetation.
Yeah.
You see, and so as a kid, from my perspective, it was like, wow, could there
super
be
fantastic.
vegetation on Mars? Could there be canals on Mars? You have sketchy photos of, if everybody knows, the mountain which is like called the face of Mars.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
There was one recently as well about it would look like a man sitting on a rock on Mars.
Yeah?
Remember that one when we were at school? Everyone was saying, "My God, there's an alien on Mars." They found a picture of it.
Yeah, they seem to keep doing that though. I see that a lot of images from the rover are sort of put out from NASA, and then they pop up on social media saying, "Oh, look, there's an alien sort of soldier on Mars."
I'm
or
sure
there's
I've
this
seen
or
something
there's
about
that."
like an alien monolith on Mars.
There was meant to be an alien monolith on one of the moons. Not sure which one, but orbiting Mars, there's meant to be a monolith on that.
2001.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So maybe that's something we can look at more of the.
Yeah, that's kind of our kind of
But we're
science fiction head on.
Yeah, that's science fiction, and dare I say that word, conspiracy, because a lot of people have little conspiracies about Mars
So
and things.
those shady patches you were talking
Yeah.
about, what did they turn out to be?
Well, as we know, Mars is now it's pockmarked with craters and also dry seas.
Yes.
So there was at one
There
point.
was at one point.
water.
Vast amounts of water on Mars, and for whatever reason, its atmosphere obviously collapsed whatever atmosphere it had. But and of course, once the atmosphere Mars is smaller than Earth. It's lower gravitational pull, and so everything sort of has drifted out into space.
The physics are completely different to how they are on this planet.
I can imagine it being a pretty hostile environment.
Yeah, it is a very hostile environment. Now we know, and that's why we've got right up-to-date rovers on Mars looking for all sorts of things. Life on Mars, of course, is the one that always leads the newspaper reports, but they're looking for mineral deposits, looking for water deposits, looking for all sorts of things.
Because that's also a thing. They want to get rid of the industry on Earth and get it all from space, like other planets, asteroids.
I think we're kind of jumping down the road.
Yeah.
Conversation, but that'll come up again anyway as we go. So, who wants to really sort of kick this one off?
I've got a few questions that I've prepared.
Okay,
fantastic.
I'm quite genuinely interested in discussing because I have no idea. First one.
Yep.
This might be a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary to colonise Mars, or would it be easier to fix Earth?
Now that's a good question, and probably a fundamental question that again I was expecting to come up during this conversation.
Very multi-layered question, isn't it?
Yeah. Basically, I said before that we came into the studio, could we get to Mars? Or should we get to Mars? And that's kind of the same.
Like from a scientific exploration point of view, I'd probably say yes, go to Mars. What could we discover there? That would be amazing.
Yeah, but then the opposite side of it, people would say that's a lot of money spent on sending a handful of people to somewhere. What's the point? So let's look at that now.
Okay.
So from the perspective of because if the conversation is about if we could get to Mars, how would we do it? So let's just face it. Let's just start with saying, to answer that question, yes, we can get to Mars. So if we can get to Mars, then we come back to your question, Jack. Should we go to Mars?
Yeah.
Or should we be focusing our attention on
keeping this planet
Earth
habitable?
Okay. So planet Earth is our spaceship.
Yes.
And there we are in our solar system, orbiting our sun, our little star that gives us life. And all of us, each and every one of us on the planet, if you like, are astronauts.
We're the crew.
Yeah, we're the crew. That's a good way.
The human race is the crew.
The human race
to this little tiny
human race is the crew of spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
Whether it's a sphere or whether it's flat. We are.
Yeah.
We're still on that. Still on that.
Just point that one out before anybody else.
18 episodes down the line.
But no.
We'll never escape the flat Earth.
So humans are the crew of spaceship planet Earth. So we need to man our spaceship and look after our spaceship. And technically, what would be perfect is if we all work as a team, just as if you are on a spaceship. You all have to work as a team. You all have your jobs.
Well, we have trouble doing that at the best of times.
Unfortunately, the human race isn't very good at cooperating in general, and is always arguing and having
fights,
tantrums, yes,
money,
over money generally, acquiring money, etc., etc. And so obviously we've got this situation at the moment, and where we are based in the UK, we have really suffered. I think we've suffered this summer so far. A lot of people have said that the summer has been, what a gorgeous summer, the weather's been wonderful.
No way. I'm ginger. No way.
And funny enough, I'm ginger too.
I quite like the sunshine.
But
I'm in the minority.
It's been really hard. It's hard at the moment in the UK because we are now in a drought situation in most of the UK.
Very recently, as of time of recording.
As of time of recording. And we have got reservoirs which are basically drying up.
Yeah. We've had crisis after crisis nowadays, haven't we?
Hosepipe bans. So far, unlike back in 76, which obviously you guys weren't around in 76, but in 76 when we had the prolonged heat, the prolonged summer, that I do remember at that time we had water shortages where we actually had a standpipe in the road and we had to go out and collect our water.
Yeah.
So on a positive side, even though we've been hitting record temperatures in the UK this year, we haven't actually had that. None of us have had to go and queue up at a standpipe to get water, which did happen back in 1976. And when you consider that the population of the UK is that much greater now, so the demand of water is that much greater, I think from that perspective, if you look at that, we've done very well.
Yeah.
Because you'd kind of expect it to be, if we had water shortages in 76, you'd definitely have water shortages now.
Yeah.
So I think we've done well. But the point is that the heat is extraordinary at the moment.
Yeah, this is the hottest summer I think I've ever experienced.
And we've never,
it's just getting hotter and hotter, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've never had a summer that we don't get rain. at some point, and it's just continuing on
But on the
and on.
other side as well, we don't tend to get much snow anymore.
No,
We
no,
don't
no,
get
not at all.
thick snow.
So the reason we're talking about this is because obviously we're talking about global
This is why we
warming.
need to go to Mars.
We're talking
Yeah.
about global warming.
We've
And
ruined
we're
this
talk-
planet.
We're talking about the human race's effect on Earth, and obviously we're going to touch upon this now since you brought it up. But that would be a good subject for another podcast, global warming, just literally talking about. But to sum up, because we've obviously the human race, as we've expanded and we've using fossil fuels and dumping loads of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and the temperature of the planet increasing, this is a big problem.
Yes.
And you could say, why are we?
There's no sign of it stopping.
No, why would we be focusing on therefore going to Mars and not trying to fix the problem here, if it's fixable?
Right.
Precisely.
You know, because
Going back to, again, as you said, working as a team.
working as a team. But, I mean, I don't know at this point. I'm going to speculate at this moment. I don't even know if it is fixable because most of the scientific studies that I've been reading recently are pointing towards that we can try and slow it down.
Yeah.
But the end result is inevitable.
End result is inevitable, especially considering the increased population of the planet is going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
By
It's just
2050, we're gonna-
increased consumption of everything.
by 2050, we are going to have some serious issues to deal with. But setting that aside, because you said about should we be focusing on planet Earth, spaceship Earth, and fixing it rather than having fanciful ideas of going to Mars, well, I think you've got to look at it like a sliding scale or a set of scales. You know, it tips one way, tips the other. Yes, we should be trying to fix planet Earth, and when it comes to space exploration, in the past it's always been what? Who's always gone into space?
Astronauts.
Yeah,
Humans.
astronauts, cosmonauts. But what I mean is, who's back?
Rich.
No.
Governments.
Exactly. So, you know, the Apollo programs and everything else, they've all been backed by government funding. But now, of course, we're in a situation where we have commercial companies.
Yeah, commercial space travel.
Exactly.
This
Now,
leads me on to one of my other questions.
okay. So let's see if we can do your first one first. So this kind of has changed the whole concept of space exploration, because before, an organisation such as NASA would have to go to the government and ask for government funding in order to
Launch a
do
rocket.
something
Yeah.
and be able to justify the scientific
That expense,
benefits.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of scientific benefits literally from going into space and going to Mars, and the things they'll be able to design, and then those things that are discovered down the line work their way into everyday life. You know, the technology works its way into your mobile phones, into your computers, and all these
Yes, because
things.
there's more information, like more technology in a phone than there was on the first
Yeah.
rockets.
Yeah, exactly. When the first moon landings, I think we just might have touched upon that before. Less computer power than we have in just a simple mobile phone.
No, that's crazy to think
It's
about.
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, you now have commercial companies like SpaceX, and Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic. And their initial thing is obviously, we've got, which one is it? SpaceX that are taking the astronauts to the space station?
Possibly.
Yeah, I think it's SpaceX, Elon Musk's, the company which are now shuttling people to the International Space Station and back. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, he's sending people up into space mainly for, at the moment, space tourism.
Money.
Making a lot of money for that. Yeah, this is true. But it's for every single time. You consider when they put William Shatner in space, or whoever they put in space, or just on the edge of space. You know, we touched on it briefly, where the actual rockets re-land themselves.
Yeah. Oh,
Technology is
I
certainly
was
advanced.
absolutely blown away when I saw that on TV.
You couldn't have imagined that.
I
you
thought
know.
it was.
Thought it was a movie.
I thought it was a CGI.
That's where you would think you're watching some kind of
Yeah.
CGI, but it's actually real. It does that. So that technology, by these commercial companies, even though they're looking at kind of, and Virgin Galactic as well, they're looking at making money from space tourism. It pushes the technology forward rapidly. And of course, because they're not government funded, they're kind of pretty much allowed to therefore
Do whatever they
do
want.
what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you say about fixing the planet, Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, I understand that their prime directive is exactly that: fix the planet. To take, as you mentioned, Zak, a bit earlier, all heavy industry off-world.
Off-world. Yes.
And literally just people live on planet Earth,
Preserve it.
preserve it into the paradise it should be, and absolutely zero manufacturing occurs
So
on
we're
the
not
planet.
using any resources. And, yeah.
Stop using Earth's resources.
Because resources are finite.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was listening to Elon Musk on a podcast, and he was saying that there is only a certain amount of fuel left on this planet to
Yes.
get anywhere else.
And we just keep using more and more
Once
and more.
that fuel's gone, we're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Unless we
And
find another way of
That's a very worrying thing to actually think about.
that actually does come into the conversation when we get as far as saying we've now landed on Mars. And the resources there are finite as well.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, so you've got Blue Origin, get off planet, all heavy industry off planet, and then we can fix the planet. So therefore, if you say, okay, we're not going to worry about going into space, we're not going to worry about that, we're going to try and fix the planet. Well, actually, that's part of the solution.
What are you going to fix it with when you run out?
Because you have got the finite resources, you have got a multiplying world population that I think is going to hit about 10 billion or something by 2050, which is, we mentioned about planet Earth being our spaceship and the humans being the crew, but you can't have, like on the space station at the moment, I don't know what the crew capacity is on the space station, but I'm sure you wouldn't be able to put 200 people in the space station.
No.
Let them breed.
You just wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because there wouldn't be space, there wouldn't be resources, they wouldn't have enough oxygen, they wouldn't have enough food, they wouldn't have enough water. Those basic things wouldn't happen. And unfortunately, that's what's happening to planet Earth at the moment. The population is exponentially increasing. So there is a term called the carrying capacity of the planet. And by 2050, we're going to hit that carrying capacity. Now, there's lots of different calculations on carrying capacity of the planet. About 10 billion people using the resources, the finite resources that we have on the planet, is about sustainable.
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to diverse. This is all part of the conversation about Mars, but I don't want to go too far off track on this one. But if you think of somebody like ourselves in the UK, if you want water, you go and turn the tap on.
Yeah.
It's cold in the winter, you put your heating on. It's going to cost you a lot more these days, but there you go, topical. If you're in America, if you're an average person in America, you would expect an average kind of consumption of things around you. But if you live in the third world where you don't, you long to have the same kind of level of lifestyle as somebody in the West. But so when you've got an expanding population and people should say, well, everybody should have the right to a level of existence on the planet. And if you try to up the level of everyday living, well, if you bring if you bring everybody's level up that have got a very low standard of living, equally you'd need to kind of balance it out by decreasing the standard of living of those people that can literally have anything they want all of the time. But of course, if you are an average guy, girl living in Western Europe or America, and you're suddenly told, well, I'm afraid we've reached the point where you're going to have to be rationed on stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. And going back to the carrying capacity, it has been calculated that if you really, really did ration all the things on the planet, water, food, everything, you could maybe push it to 1 trillion people on the planet, but then everybody would literally be eating the same little bit of rations.
Soil and green.
Yeah, soil and green. It would be that kind of society, and you would end up having, before you even reach that, the breakdown of society.
We go back to being just animals.
Because of the population increasing, and with global warming, that adds to the fact that people can't, the areas where people can live and the areas where people can farm are decreasing. People are moving because certain places are becoming uninhabitable, and equally people are chopping down forests because other areas are turning into dust bowls and they can't grow any crops or anything. So we've got a big problem there. So if you're not going to try and hold back the tide on planet Earth, you've at least got to have a view. I'm sure you guys may or may not agree, but mankind has suddenly got to say, if this is going to be something that we're heading towards, we need to have
a vehicle out of here.
Another plan.
A getaway
Isn't there like a scientific community that actually wants that? They want to escape Earth to get to Mars and start their own kind of civilization?
Yeah, that's something I can't. I haven't researched, so I couldn't really.
Could it be secret societies episode?
Yeah, they could be a secret societies episode. But if you lived on an island, and there was a small tribe living on an island, and it had a sustainable amount of obviously fish in the ocean around it, protein source to eat on the island, vegetation to eat on the island,
Space to live, yeah.
but the population increases.
Proliferation, yeah.
Those resources are going to get pushed to the limit, and in nature, usually that's when people die off, or animals die off when there's not enough
food to go around,
food or water to go around. The population of animals die off
to allow the resources to recoup themselves.
Exactly, but that doesn't happen with human beings.
No,
we kind of
keep on
going and keep expanding. So, and this has just been a big answer, but to fix Earth, I kind of feel that actually one answer is, as an expanding population on planet Earth, we kind of really need to follow that blue origin philosophy and at least get off planet. If you can take all that heavy industry off planet, that would make a huge difference. Both
that'd be
global
hugely
warming,
beneficial.
And if planet Earth was literally just a paradise where people lived, but all your heavy industry was off planet, and of course we have things like the asteroid belt, and the asteroids are heavy in precious metals and resources, and Mars, since we're talking about Mars, is exactly the same. There's so much resources on Mars that anybody that could actually get there, actually be able to inhabit Mars and mine Mars rather than mining on Earth, there's probably, if you're going to look at it from a capitalistic kind of commercial way, there's billions or trillions of dollars and pounds to make there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, get off Earth, and who knows, maybe we can go to the stars.
Hey, we might discover an even better place.
Maybe or an equally good place, but that may be the next step in human development that we need to get off planet.
Okay.
So
going back to Mars, how long does it take to get to Mars?
Exactly. So, right, we've got our space rocket.
Okay.
Now I'm going to switch from Blue Origin and saving the planet to SpaceX with Elon Musk. His focus isn't the same as Blue Origin. His focus is really, he wants to get to Mars. He wants to prove that we can get to Mars. He wants to get to Mars. And so I think with Elon Musk, he predicts a crewed mission. So this is a fully crewed mission to Mars in 2029.
Wow. That's quite soon.
And he said, and I'm quoting from him, Elon Musk said that it would be a meaningful number of people that could reach the red planet in 10 years. So that's
a meaningful number.
Yeah, that's his outlook. And then we'll go back to your question was,
how long does it take to get to Mars?
So how far are we from Mars? Well, of course, that changes all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In movies, you think it's just straight line, easy job.
So we orbit the sun.
Yeah, we do.
Mars orbits the sun. But Mars could be the opposite side of the sun to where we are.
Yeah, different orbital rotations and things.
And speed.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is the optimal time to go to Mars is when Mars is in its closest proximity to Earth, to make the distance between Earth and Mars
feasible.
Because what you'd probably do, I think it's about a 7-month trip to get to Mars.
Only 7 months?
We say only 7 months. That's quite a long time.
That's a long time. You need a lot of resources.
Yeah, which is.
I was thinking years.
No. 7 months with current technology.
Right.
There could be engine developments that might make it shorter, which would make it a lot easier for humans to get to Mars.
I can imagine.
But a 7-month trip, you would need to launch while Mars is still furthest away, probably.
Okay.
So, well, not furthest away, but it'll be further away than. So, what you're going to do is you're going to end up intercepting it.
Decrease the time.
That's clever.
Yeah.
That's clever.
At the optimum distance from planet Earth. So, let's have a look at this. So, the distance from Earth to Mars at its closest point would be 33.9 million miles, or 54.6 million kilometres.
Wow. Wow.
So you've got to launch a little rocket and head off for 7 months to Mars, which brings up an awful lot of other questions. Which I'm not going to preempt with the questions. I'll let you ask questions.
Okay, so we've set off from Earth.
Yep.
We've established it's a 7-month journey to get to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Once we've landed on Mars, is it safe to inhabit Mars? And if so, or if not, what challenges would we, as a civilization, what challenges would we face to then safely live on another
I'm going to
planet?
briefly say we're going to need to come back to actually the journey, okay? Because there's a lot of, you're talking about hazards, there's a lot of hazards with the journey and how to accomplish the journey. But let's jump forward to being on Mars. Are there any hazards? What things would we face as humans being on Mars? Well, from my research, it is an incredibly hostile environment, okay? So what are the humans' 3 basic needs, lads?
Water?
Mm-hmm.
Food,
Mm-hmm.
oxygen.
Well, yes, we don't think about that on planet Earth, but it would be, okay, we'd add oxygen in, okay? But
Shelter?
Shelter, yeah. So on planet Earth, you'd basically say water, food, shelter.
Yes.
Obviously on Mars, oxygen's going to come into it.
No trees.
No trees, but humans can't live very long without water. You can live a lot longer without food.
Yeah.
But you cannot, and you're not going to last hardly any time without oxygen.
I think it's only 2. Is it 2 weeks without water? I think is the maximum.
No, I
I think it's less than that.
no, I think it's 2 weeks for food.
Yeah, I think it's a few
And
days.
water,
or
it's
more.
like
a
a couple.
food.
I think it's a
It's
couple of
about 4
days.
isn't it?
Yeah,
4 days if you don't have any fluids at all, before you start getting delirious.
and then die.
And, everybody's going to be kind of variably different, but
Unless you're in here and you sweat. To death.
oxygen, you'll probably be dead within 60 seconds if you didn't have oxygen.
Okay.
So
That's just suffocation.
yeah, suffocation. So the kind of hazards you're going to get on there, firstly, can you breathe oxygen? Well, the atmosphere on Mars is about 0.2 to 1% oxygen in the atmosphere. So if we say 1% oxygen, 99% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide.
Oh,
So you're not going to breathe.
the trees might. Hang on. Trees might do well.
Yeah. The problem is that would be another question. Within this question, how would we survive on the planet? What challenges would we face? Of course, we've got to grow food, and so you'd think food would produce oxygen. You're quite right, but you can't literally just grow plants on the
Fly over
Surface
the
of
top
Mars.
and drop
Planet
some
surface.
seeds and water.
You
over
can't do that because of the basically the cosmic radiation, the sun's radiation that hits Mars because it's got such a thin atmosphere, would just destroy anything.
So would, if theoretically,
and it
you
would
could,
also affect human beings badly as well. So you need, if you're going to land on Mars, and you've part of the journey, talking about the journey, you've got to obviously take enough food and water and oxygen to get there. We'll come back to that. But if you actually manage to get there, you need to have a water supply on Mars. You need to have oxygen on Mars, which it really hasn't got any, particularly not enough to sustain people in as it is. And you need shelter. Let's maybe deal with that. That's why I asked you about the 3 things you need: water, food, shelter. So if we deal with those, so you've got this really hostile environment that actually you can't survive in. So you need to make it
Survival.
Yeah. So perhaps, probably, it's kind of a bit reverse. So maybe we should be thinking about, you need to get there and you need to have some shelter first in order to protect yourself from the environment, from the radiation, and from the fact that there's lack of oxygen, and from the you need to be protected. So how is that going to happen? Well, I think that probably the most logical way for humans to get around that problem is you're not going to take your habitation with you.
Right.
You're going to send your habitation way in advance.
Okay.
So it's all there when you're in.
It could be years in advance. Okay, so if you could, and another thing, okay, we've got to talk about is the cost, of course, because that's where it would never happen if the government was financing it, but because you've got
individual
companies doing
billionaires,
that, then
their limits. They have less limits, don't they? They can just sort of fund it themselves.
they can fund it themselves. So that's gonna help to push that space exploration forwards. Okay, so if you are going to Mars and you've got to take stuff with you, or not even take stuff, send it in advance, as I just said. You've got to send stuff in advance. At the present moment, going back a few years up to the present moment, when we had the space shuttles, were in operation, okay, to launch a payload of 20. I've got these are the figures that I've researched. To launch a payload of 27,500 kilograms would cost 1.5 billion back then. That works out at $54,500 per kilogram.
Wow.
Yeah, you just want to send a kilogram of
That's
anything
insane.
into space. Okay?
Well, I think I was watching
But I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, Jack. But for SpaceX Falcon 9, the rockets that they use to access the International Space Station, the cost is around $2,720, shall I say, per kilo. So when you're talking back in the time of the space shuttles, it was $54,500. Now it's down to $2,720. So they've managed to bring the cost down. So just from the commercial perspective, it's going to cost to send stuff. But you're going to have to send stuff in advance, aren't you?
Yeah.
You can't just literally load up one spaceship with everything you need. Not only that, the spaceship that the astronauts go on has got to have enough supplies for that 7-month trip. So you don't really want to also have supplies on it for while you're there.
Yes.
You only want to take the most minimum supplies to get you there, knowing that what you need is already there. So I think, looking maybe a bit sci-fi, is that you've got to send landing craft to Mars that can prepare habitation, which might be some kind of...
Could be like drones or something?
It could be drones. It could be kind of, domes which unfold themselves. I've looked at one project which is looking into actually having a machine that lands much like the rover and using this Martian soil. I'm not quite sure how it works, but it's meant to then 3D print habitation.
Oh wow, that's
3D print habitational domes.
innovative.
I've
yeah.
also seen the underground.
Oh yes, now that would.
So maybe a machine that could tunnel underground, make some
Well,
space under there.
I don't think you need to. One of the things with Perseverance, if you remember, what did it also do for the first time? Never been done on Mars before.
Fly.
It didn't personally fly, but
A part of it did.
the drone did.
Yes.
Which the name of the drone escapes me. But anyway, the drone flew, and they really didn't even know if that would work, and it did. Which means that for Mars exploration in the future, you could literally land a craft and send off far more complicated drones in all directions. Because normally Perseverance takes ages. It's got to have its instructions sent to it. It downloads those instructions. It completes those instructions, and then it transmits back. And they wait to find out if it's actually managed to do it or not.
Yeah.
With your drones, and it's also going at a very slow speed, very, very crawling space speed. So if you've got drones that can fly and they're solar powered and they can recharge, they can be zipping off all over the place, and they can literally fly into caverns, caves, things
to
like that.
explore places we've never seen
before. And so if you could get a ready-made cavern that you can seal the entrance up on, it's already a ready-made
Shelter.
of sorts,
Yeah.
which would be another option. Don't know whether that would be an option exactly, but yeah, so you've got underground, possibly they're using what's already there, and then you've got shelters which would open up, put themselves together, and also, hopefully, I would have thought that advances in technology would allow those domes or whatever the habitation is to also be able to start growing food.
Yeah, that was bringing me onto a question about
Growing
that.
food which would produce oxygen, growing food which would need water, obviously. To answer one question, is there water on Mars? You've asked about oxygen. Water, there's frozen
Ice caps
at both sides. There is other water supply, but from what I gathered from my research is the water is incredibly salty. If you could think of Earth's oceans, it's like mega salty compared to our oceans.
Oh dear.
So completely undrinkable. Not sure about the polar ice caps though. But this is part of the missions that are happening at the moment, to see if they can discover
I have seen one
water.
about terraforming Mars, which would involve basically a giant mirror, and they would reflect the sunlight onto Mars at a higher volume to then melt the ice caps to then mean that the water
Well,
It's an interesting idea.
there is.
flows.
I mean, so as I said, there's tons of water at the polar ice caps, according to scientists. The northern ice cap alone is around 621 miles across. Also, there are dust-covered glaciers that wrap around the planet. So there's a huge amount of ice. Okay, so it's estimated that all that adds up to the equivalent of the whole of Mars, if it was melted, that was, or the whole of Mars being covered by 1 metre of ice. But it's all obviously in different places. So there is water on Mars, and that could be processed to make it drinkable. Okay, so there is a supply of water, and water is basically H2O, so that's hydrogen and 2 parts oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can split that down, you've got hydrogen, which you can use for fuel, and you've got oxygen you can breathe.
Now, I don't know the composition of would you call it soil? Or is it more?
Near the soil on Mars.
Okay. Is it possible to grow anything in that if it was like enclosed within like an
Incubator.
Earth-like environment?
So, you know, I'm guessing not. I'm guessing
Okay.
not. Somebody might be able to put me right on that. And the reason why I'm guessing not is I'm assuming that it's bombarded with so much cosmic
It's
and
just
solar
soaked it all up.
radiation that it wouldn't be.
Nothing would ever get above the
It
surface.
would just
So-
wouldn't be able to be used. But that's why I think that if you're going to go to Mars and you're going to grow food, you need to use hydroponics.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that taking like soil from Earth to Mars?
Well, hydroponics is basically growing. All you need to grow a plant, and I've actually seen people where they've in India and places like that, they've got old rubber mattresses and rubber cushions from settees that people have thrown away, and they've just literally taken that foam rubber and put seeds in it, and then they add water to the foam rubber, and the seeds grow in the foam rubber, because
Right.
a plant only needs to have a medium to grow in. What it really needs is nutrient-rich water.
Okay.
So whereas a normal plant would take nutrients from the soil, you can grow a plant pretty much in anything. So sand.
Is that any plant?
Yeah, you should be able to. That's what hydroponics is about. So, you know, if we were to grow food on Mars, it would most likely be done by hydroponics. Initially, using artificial light, because of the radiation would be too much from the sun.
Okay.
So it need a protective influence of a thick, because it hasn't got a protective influence of a thick atmosphere. So it would need to be
Enclosed into like
into
an
habitation.
Earth-like habitation.
To protect it from the radiation from the sun. Otherwise, the radiation would mutate and damage the crops if grown on the surface. If you try to do that.
Precisely. Yeah.
And hydroponics is, to put it simply, hydroponics is a way to skip soil.
Okay. That's
Alright?
good.
So what you do is you sub in a different material to support the roots. That's why I was saying about the foam rubber.
Right. So
Yeah.
you're saying it
that's
needs
a-
another growth medium.
Yeah, a medium for it to grow in to support the plant. So once you've got that, your growth of crops is directly fed by nutrient-rich water.
Okay.
You see, now there's multiple approaches of designs of hydroponic systems that we're working on, I believe, at the moment, and there are hydroponic farms on Earth. But the core element is essentially the same. You just need a medium for the plant to grow in. But what's most important is that the nutrients that it would have been getting naturally from soil on Earth, that's in the water.
That's what needs to be fed to.
Okay,
What's the temperature on Mars
Oh, that is a good question.
as opposed to Earth? Because I'm thinking with water, obviously we drink water to a certain temperature. We don't want to drink boiling water.
Yeah, because we want to
Would
sustain
water,
ourselves.
if we had a bottle of water, for example, on Mars, would it just begin to boil and it wouldn't be drinkable?
Right.
And if so, how do we keep water from evaporating back into the atmosphere?
I think the answer is kind of the same. It would have to be in kind of like enclosed in like an Earth-like
But is that
atmosphere.
that's not livable? And then I don't think we might as well just make that on Earth.
Right. So it fluctuates.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So the
Much like
temperature of
Earth,
Mars
then.
fluctuates on Earth, but Mars doesn't have an atmosphere like Earth does. We've got a protective atmosphere with its ozone layer, and we also have a magnetic field which protects the Earth from solar radiation. For
Yep.
the best part, which Mars, I believe, doesn't have it. I think it's kind of dead.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
it has that protection anymore. It's long gone. So talking about the temperature. So the temperature on Mars, on an average Mars day, the planet is about minus 60 degrees centigrade.
Ouch.
So So a lot of people would assume that Mars is hotter, probably because of its red colouring. But it is in fact,
dust,
it is in fact colder than Earth because
And
it's obviously further away
and
from
during
the sun.
Mars, winter temperatures at the poles can get down. It's estimated down to around minus 125 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to survive on that. Yeah.
So obviously the planet is colder than Earth. We've established that. What's stopping our water supply on Mars once we've established that we have an ocean or a water supply? What's stopping that from just freezing over and being
Well, it is
useless.
frozen at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's completely frozen.
But we're looking to
So you've got to go
live
there.
on Mars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get there. You're going to have to tap into that water supply, and you're going to have to continually melt that water supply,
Okay.
and then you're going to have to
Filter it.
refine that water to make sure that it's
Not salty.
drinkable, and maybe to use it for to produce oxygen.
So we wouldn't get like clouds, for example, on Mars because that's something that's unique to
That was
Earth.
almost my question. My question.
we-
My question was, does Mars have weather?
It certainly has dust storms. Yeah.
Because that's all I know. That it has
Yeah.
dust
So I
storms.
just think as soon as you get a cloud and it rains, then you get a pool of water and that evaporates, goes back
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
and
it's
you've
the
got
cycle, isn't it?
You've got a constant kind of water supply there, but it's just how we get from what it is now with just dust storms and presumably nothing
Well,
to having its own sort of ecosystem.
there are more planets in our solar system than Mars.
Yeah.
And take Venus, for example. That's a huge clouded atmosphere, but the clouds are made up of sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
So you can have clouds. And looking at data on Mars, it says that clouds can be very high up as high as 100 kilometres above the planet. The first images of Mars sent by Mariner 4 showed visible clouds in Mars' upper atmosphere. The clouds are very faint and can only be seen reflecting sunlight against the darkness of the night sky. So I suppose the question would be, what are those clouds made of? Okay, so
Is it useful to us if we want to live there?
Can we utilise it?
But so looking into what the composition of the clouds are, it would seem that clouds appear to be composed of carbon dioxide ice. So because of the
Okay.
temperature, because of the, as I said, it's like 1% oxygen, 99% carbon dioxide
Yeah.
up in the upper atmosphere that Mars has. At those temperatures, you're going to get carbon dioxide crystals, which will
Right.
create clouds
So-
of carbon dioxide.
This may be a silly question,
Mm-hmm.
but if there are clouds,
Yep.
does that mean it rains?
I wouldn't have thought so. Maybe somebody can answer that. I wouldn't say. I mean,
Because
if
you're
it
saying
nec-
clouds, and I think of clouds, and I think of rain. But then
then
if you're saying
but-
it's carbon dioxide,
But
then
we'd find pools of water all over
Yeah,
Mars
yeah,
if there was
it wouldn't be carbon dioxide.
aggressive rainfall.
Once carbon dioxide unfreezes,
Mm.
it would just become a gaseous state again.
Okay.
Yeah. So what with?
But would it
with-
work differently
with,
on
with water?
the fact that it's a different
With
kind of
water,
atmosphere and
you
stuff?
obviously have the cycle on Earth where water evaporates into a gas, condenses into a cloud. That cloud becomes so heavy because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger with and the water goes from a gas back to a liquid and then comes back down to the surface of the
Which
planet
is
as a liquid,
Precisely what we need right now.
which is what we really do need. Right now. Whereas with the carbon dioxide, it must be that it's that the clouds are so thin and wispy at the altitude
Yeah.
that if they dissipate,
There'd be nothing left.
they
to,
would just dissipate into gas, carbon dioxide gas again.
Be interesting to know
certainly
more
there
about
are,
this.
there are also winds. But
Mm.
those winds are going to be carbon dioxide winds
Yeah.
on Mars, and they do kick up dust storms. You know, we've seen
Mm.
those on the rover pictures and video.
I watched
You
The
know.
Martian by Ridley Scott. That's got
as,
dust storms.
as research.
I mean, actually, I do remember watching that movie. It was a fun movie.
There's a director's cut that we haven't seen.
Is there?
I've
Yeah.
got it on 4K.
I don't know whether or not you could actually. I mean, like with a lot of movies, they do look at their research
Yeah.
and try and base things on scientific principles.
Bit of
but
dramatic
then-
license
But then
there.
they stick a lot of dramatic. So, but coming back onto the water and using it as oxygen, or how we can have oxygen, because obviously we need our water supply,
Mhm.
and we need our hydroponic food supply,
Yeah.
and we need our oxygen. Interesting thing is NASA's Perseverance rover has successfully generated breathable oxygen on Mars. That was one of the experiments that it
Oh, wow.
did. The demonstration was carried out by the rover's MOXIE, is what it's called, a MOXIE instrument, on April the 20th. And it could lay the groundwork to helping future astronauts establish a sustainable colony on the planet. I've got some more information on the MOXIE. Okay, what's MOXIE and how does it work? It's short for Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. I know how much you love these kind of
Very
Acronyms.
catchy. That one.
acronyms, yeah. So just to say again, it's the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. And it's a toaster-sized device, like talkie toaster. That's what you thought of straight away.
Yeah, yeah.
Talkie toaster.
Moiru. That's what it's spelled.
Would you like some toast?
Moiru.
I know. So it's a toaster-sized device that can convert carbon dioxide into oxygen through a process called solid oxide electrolysis. Martian air is drawn into the device through a filter, and a mechanical pump compresses it down to an Earth-like setting. And that's then forwarding carbon dioxide into the electrolysis system. The carbon dioxide is heated to around 800 degrees centigrade, that is. MOXIE itself can withstand this temperature thanks to its heat-resistant nickel alloy parts and a lightweight aerogel that traps heat inside.
That's one big toaster.
Yeah. Gas separates into oxygen and carbon monoxide. And MOXIE isolates the oxygen to a different chamber where the oxygen ions recombine. The carbon monoxide is then released and we're left with pure oxygen.
So if we established a dome,
Mhm.
perhaps the size of a small town on
Yep.
Mars, and we had those MOXIE on a larger scale,
Yep.
would we then be able to create a breathable,
Kind of terraforming it.
Well, I'm assuming...
not necessarily the whole planet,
I'm-
but just
yeah,
an
I
area that we
don't
can
think we're quite
live on?
jumping to Weyland-Yutani atmosphere processing plants. So I'm assuming that if missions are sent to Mars in advance of the actual human astronauts in order to set up habitation, and they're all automated, and they've got the habitation sorted, which of course we need the shielding against the radiation for humans to survive on the surface, and they set up the hydroponics there, so there's food growing, and the MOXIEs are pumping in carbon dioxide and converting it to oxygen. And if it was possible also to tap into a water supply and do that all automated to get all this lovely paradise living sorted out for your arrival, then the amount of plants that you're going to have to grow to sustain your crew, depending on the amount of crew, they're going to be producing oxygen as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So whether I would assume you'd have to have an awful lot of plant growth to produce enough oxygen to even supply one human being.
Well, is it to like get to that point?
Yeah, so
Relying on the MOXIE to get to that point.
So, I mean, I know Elon Musk was saying he would see a mission by 2029. It's obviously 2022. I haven't heard anything about any pre-missions, taking anything there, because you're taking your habitation, you're taking possibly automated hydroponic gardens to grow food, to produce oxygen, MOXIE to produce oxygen, you need your water, and it would also to dump already fabricated rations, I would assume, on there
That's
as well.
brought another question to
because
my
the thing
mind.
is, if you're relying on your hydroponics and something goes wrong with that, you need a backup supply of food.
Yes.
So you're going to have your MREs, your astronauts, ready-to-eat meals are going to have to be there for you when you arrive, because you're only going to take what you need to get you there. Anything else, anything more on your spaceship that's going to get you to Mars, anything more than you need, so more oxygen, more water, more food, is just extra weight for no good reason. So they're going to basically be calculating it to they've probably got a sort of margin, don't you think?
Yeah.
So if something went wrong, you got a bit of a backup,
Okay.
but you don't want to take excess.
So my question is, okay, we've talked about obviously growing plants. We've talked about oxygen and water. Obviously, as humans, we need other food,
Protein.
protein.
Yeah.
how would that work? You obviously mentioned rations that we'd send there.
Take some
But
cows.
again,
Yeah, I don't think
that would be finite again. Surely we'd need some kind of sustainable farming solution with like animals.
Well,
You can get protein. Can you get protein from
I would have thought that they
nuts
would
and
be
things?
looking along the lines of. I can't see them looking at any time soon.
Yeah.
Livestock.
This is very
I think
far,
you would have to.
far-flung.
I have a question about the far future.
Okay, I think you'd have to look at getting your protein from plant-based things, or this is the other thing, or plants usually need bees in order to pollinate them. So you're going to have a plant pollination system. So perhaps it would be easier to be able to get your protein from, say, protein-based plants and maybe insects. I don't know if that's a thing. If you could perhaps. I know that some companies are already looking into
protein block or something.
Well, I know there are companies already that are looking in. I mean, I've eaten mealworms, crickets, and things. I know you have as well.
It's a locust.
Yeah, locusts. Yeah. In fact, as human beings, we could get protein from insects, equally as well as we could from having our normal meat sources, and they're very easy to have farms that are farming insect protein. I think at the moment what they're doing is they're doing dog and cat food protein as a start before they allow it to be fed to humans. But I know you can buy insects to eat. Whether that's a solution to it, I don't know.
Another question that's brought up.
Yep.
And we haven't mentioned it yet. So, along with this protein question I had, was more of a bit of information really. I've heard somewhere that people have been growing meat.
Oh yes, artificial meat.
Would that be a solution? Just throwing it out there.
It may well be. I mean, if you had an
Seems
automated,
like it's in its infancy.
Yeah, I think that was in its. I mean, didn't they work out that by growing enough meat to have a burger would cost the burger would be like £5,000 or something for a burger.
Right. Okay.
So I don't
Depends
know.
what budget you've got.
I
Basically.
was just thinking about solutions.
No,
to
I
the
know,
problem.
and I know companies are also looking into. I think there's a company in Iceland which are looking into growing a very sustainable and easy to grow. It's not a bacteria. It's like a bacteria within water. It's like
Plankton?
Yeah, plankton is a creature in its own right, but we're talking about sort of like a
microbes.
Yeah, so it's good, like a sludge. Okay, like a sludge, and they're turning that sludge, which is high in protein, into giving it different flavours.
Like a protein mush.
Very much like Soylent Green, but not made out of humans.
I do have
spoiler
there. I do have a solution to that problem.
Yep.
Okay.
We send all the vegans to Mars first because they don't need meat.
Okay.
They can get on with it.
I think you're going to get some mean vegan comments on that one. Yeah. Anyway, let's try and skip the vegans for the moment. But I think a vegan-based type of diet with sort of added protein blocks or whatever you want to call would be a thing. I mean, let's face it, human beings require sustenance, and I would say that they would therefore have to style the diet for the astronauts, as they probably do already.
Yeah.
On
what they can feasibly provide.
Yeah.
Is it possible? We're going to have a bit of. This is just purely kind of drifting into science fiction now, but would it be possible that if we developed an artificial intelligence that didn't need sustenance, food, water, that we could send that to go and do the majority of the work?
Well, I think that's kind of what we said about using. Well, I said earlier about automated stuff.
But in terms of making it livable, so that we can literally arrive on the driveway, go into our little Mars huts.
Yeah.
I mean, have it all done.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
To be able to have something that arrives early, builds everything. Everything's automated and it's ready for you when you land.
But obviously, we're developing science and robots and robotics and things like that alongside all this.
I've come up with a fantastic sci-fi story, but I'll keep it
to
myself.
Right, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, I mean, there was one other aspect that we haven't mentioned about going to Mars. So I'll bring it up, since we have kind of now, we've built our domes or we're in a cave.
In terms of the timeline,
we've got our Moxie oxygen generators.
Yeah.
We've got our hydroponics, enough food to feed ourselves, got enough oxygen. We've tapped the ice caps.
We've developed suits to keep out the radiation.
Exactly, the buildings themselves keeping out the radiation. And we're mining Mars, for its resources, so we don't have to mine Earth anymore.
Yeah, there's a few, 1,000 people, would you say, at that point, or hundreds?
Yeah, well, if you get, we're going into the far distant future.
Well, I'll just say where we're at.
If you've got a mining facility, you're going to need a few thousand people, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're going to have things going backwards and forwards. I mean,
by that point, we've probably would have had people born on Mars.
Yeah, we're going to get to.
I have a question that we can have some fun with.
So you're going to get. You're going to be aiming for that kind of society where you are mining Mars and also the asteroid belt and bringing stuff back to the planet Earth in order for the resources to be completely. Don't use any resources on Earth anymore. Just use resources from outer space. So and the atmosphere cleans up and there's no need to use fossil fuels anymore and things like that. So that's great. But in the early days, so we've just sent our automated AI to Mars. And
how 9,000?
Built all our stuff for us. We've landed there. That's great. How do we get back? Yeah, this is the thing. You see, I talked about only taking enough oxygen, enough food and water to get there.
Good point.
Which in itself is a hell of a risk.
But you're not going to think how much it would cost to send a rocket or spaceship of some sort, even if it was launched, say, from the lunar orbit rather than off Earth. But you've got to get there. Are you going to carry the amount of fuel with you to get you back? Well, you're not, because that would be, again, a ridiculous
You'd have to
thing.
kind of generate that there.
If you've seen the most recent Pixar film, Lightyear, they have a similar problem where they crash.
Oh, yeah, they've got
and then they have to kind of
like a
try
crystal
and
thing.
to try and build up again. To
I haven't seen this
to get to a point where they can again launch from where they are.
So that is a good example of what I'm talking about. So as well as that automated AI system, making sure you've got your habitation, your oxygen, your water and your food, it also really needs to be able to have a
delivery service.
a rocket or a escape pod or whatever it is to come off Mars that needs to be refueled. So you're going to have to also have a fuel refinery there.
Yeah.
That's going to be able to create.
Obviously, you got to find that.
Well, you can create fuel from water.
Okay.
So it can be done.
Steampunk.
And you want that to be chugging away in all the time. If this is the if you expect the people that are going to Mars to come back. There is a program, I believe, where people have volunteered to go to Mars, to be the first people to go to Mars, and they know they're not coming back.
Right.
They've just said, right, whatever happens, I'm going to Mars. I'm never going to come back.
Just brought up another thing.
And there are some scientists that have said they're prepared to do that. I think they have to. They have to be. What's the word?
Evaluated.
Yeah, kind of evaluated. I think. Definitely like that. They've got no family ties. They've got all the psychological things. Because you've got the psychological side of it as well. So if you're a person who isn't married, who maybe you haven't got any family around anymore, or whatever reason, then you would probably be an ideal candidate.
It was also as well, if your whole life has been centered around getting to Mars, then you're that is your destiny to go to Mars. Then I guess so, but you still. I'm just using that as an example.
You still need that psychoanalysis, because what you don't want to do is send a mission to Mars with its astronauts, ladies and gents, to find that one of them who spent all their life dreaming of going to Mars, that suddenly has a breakdown crisis halfway there because they realise suddenly the enormity of they're never coming back.
Yeah.
They snap and then go around
murdering everyone.
Yeah, that would be the extreme, but causing issues which you don't want that. You want everything to run smoothly.
You kind of because it would be one team. It would be the one team you'd want them to all fit together almost.
Yeah, they've all got to gel.
Yes.
Together. Interesting thing you say about if people. People could die on a trip. Yeah, 7 months trip out there. You don't know if somebody could die. There was a thing that I was watching the other night.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And they said, nobody, as far as I'm aware, nobody's actually died in space yet. But if they do, have you ever considered what they would do with the body?
They have to have a solution to this problem.
Yeah. So the solution that they have in, I believe that this is the solution in the International Space Station, is they put the body in a bag, they put the bag in an airlock, and then they expose it to the temperatures of space, which freezes it to ridiculously low temperature, and then they've got an arm that agitates the bag, shakes it, so it all breaks up into powder, and then it all gets packed up into just a little packet.
Slush pop, yeah.
Apparently, it could be something that could be mailed through a letterbox.
Because they're not allowed by international law to jettison bodies into space because it's classified as rubbish.
It's littering.
Littering, that's what it is.
That's another thing.
So you freeze the body and get it down to
you
dust.
say how obviously nobody's been jettisoned into space or anything.
Yeah, well, I don't believe so. I think ashes have gone up.
Ashes have gone up.
Yeah, people have put
There's
ashes
like
in rocket.
1.1% of somebody's ashes on Mars, not Mars, on the moon. Do you remember?
Yes. Somebody was, one of the scientists was sent to the moon, and I'm not sure if somebody else is on one of the deep solar probes as well.
Just
Maybe
keeps on going out there.
Yeah, keeps on going. Anyway, so we've got to Mars, we've got our habitation. One thing we haven't considered, though, is that trip, the 7-month trip to get there, because even in space, in the space station as it is, human beings' bodies, their bones degenerate. And they have to keep doing resistance exercises to try.
Yes, it's for ever so many hours a day, isn't it?
Yeah, but even doing the same kind of exercise routine they do on planet Earth, because they're doing it in a weightless environment, when they get back to Earth, they still can't walk immediately. That's why you see them getting lifted out of the capsules and everything, because they've got to adjust to Earth gravity.
Acclimatise.
7 months of that going to Mars and then being on Mars in a lower gravity.
That's going to mess with you.
Could cause a lot of issues, as well as the shielding of the ship has got to prevent the ship from the occupants from being affected by solar radiation and cosmic radiation as well. I mean, you could wrap your ship in lead to protect it, but that wouldn't be obviously practical because it's just too heavy and it just wouldn't work. So they are looking at other things, such as, I mean, you've seen again sci-fi where you have the rotating ships that they spin and create an artificial gravity.
Yeah.
And so they are looking to see if that's a solution to it, to create an artificial gravity. So one thing we haven't talked about again, that concerning the journey there, is a 7-month journey, how it would affect the astronauts themselves on that journey, because they're in a weightless environment technically, and when they're at the International Space Station, they have big problems because being in a weightless environment does affect the skeletal system
and the muscular system.
Mass,
yeah. So spaceflight is basically the conditions of spaceflight are known to cause a loss of bone mineral density in astronauts.
Would it be like atrophy?
Yeah, so that means that they're at a higher risk of bone fractures.
That's not good.
So you basically just become very delicate.
Yeah, and a recent mathematical model that says that 33% of astronauts will be at risk of osteoporosis during a human mission to Mars.
Right.
So a resistance exercise device would be needed at a minimum in a spacecraft.
In space anyway, it's how many hours a day?
They do a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot, but it still doesn't equal being on the planet Earth with its natural gravity.
There's still going to be side effects.
And the lack of gravity can also wreak havoc on the human body given enough time. So astronauts aboard the space station, or should I say astronauts aboard the International Space Station, have been shown to lose 1 to 1.5% of the mineral density in their weight-bearing bones every month. So you're on that for a 7-month trip.
Yeah.
And they also tend to lose muscle mass, even when exercising in the same way as they would do on Earth.
Okay, so it's still having that negative effect.
So so you've got to create that. Now you might be able to create that through artificial gravity if you could spin the ship. So you design a ship that's got one of those kind of habitational,
kind of like a centrifugal
force.
force.
Yeah. So if you could produce an artificial gravity, that might be one way.
Kind of like 2001, they've got that big spinning disc and he's jogging around it.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
it's very much so.
But the other problem in being in space is you've got the solar radiation and the cosmic radiation hitting your
I
ship
think
all the
everything in
time.
space at this point seems to be wanting to go against us
So
going to
depending on
Mars.
where the radiation comes from, it may be made of different particles, which have different energies, which would require, say, different means of shielding. So if it's not done right, you're going to get radiation issues with your DNA.
Yeah, and that's...
So, for example, radiation from energetic particles ejected from the sun behave very differently than cosmic rays from outside our galaxy.
Crikey.
Yeah, see, these are all things that have to be taken into consideration if you're going to get a manned crew 7-month journey to Mars. So without any mind-blowing sci-fi level breakthroughs, the only practical way to imitate gravity on a trip to Mars is by spinning the spaceship, as we've already said, and creating a centripetal force.
Oh, okay.
Centripetal force. For the centripetal approach, the larger the spin radius, perhaps the shape of a hoop, the closer it would resemble the field of gravity on Earth, but it would also be more difficult to launch and may therefore, as we said earlier briefly, it might need to be assembled in space. So if you were going to do, say, a lunar,
like Star Trek.
So if they're going to put a lunar base on the moon, and they're going to maybe do a lunar orbiting space station, then you'd build the spaceship out there, and that's where you'd launch it from, because you're not going to get it off the surface of the planet. That's not going to happen. But that still doesn't solve the problem of the radiation shielding. So what they're also looking into is the possibility of using magnetic shielding.
Okay.
To try and save on weight, so to produce a kind of a magnetic field around the ship.
Hang on. Are you talking force fields?
Well, if you see, the planet Earth has got its own magnetic shield that shields it from solar and cosmic radiation. So if you can produce a magnetic shield around a ship, which is spinning to create artificial gravity, then you're not increasing the weight of the ship. I mean, you're in space anyway, but the bulk of the ship and what's got to go into building that ship is not going to have to be increased if you can produce the shielding from a magnetic shield.
Wow. Okay.
Combined with your artificial gravity, because the ship has got a
so it's kind of like an artificial magnetic shield,
if you want to put it that way. You did ask something else though, so we'll come to your previous question. We've now managed to build our spaceship in space.
Yes.
We've got a spaceship which creates artificial gravity, which helps to protect our astronauts that are travelling to Mars from osteoporosis. It's shielded to stop their DNA being affected by cosmic and solar radiation, and they've got their 7-month journey to Mars, and they've landed on Mars. The AI that Jack suggests has been there with its robots and built everything that's required.
I hope the billionaires listen to this podcast, because might give them a few ideas.
Hydroponics are working brilliantly. Moxie is producing
everything is going well.
Everything's going well. So you got there.
We've nailed everything.
Boom, you nailed there.
We've answered all the questions.
I'm assuming prolonged stay on Mars.
Yeah.
You're going to have to keep up that kind of exercise or something, because otherwise you're going to have an issue coming back to Earth gravity.
Yes.
But the question you asked was, I'm sure it was you.
What was it? I can't remember.
It was about the next generation.
Ah, yeah, I
It
brought
was
that.
yours.
Well, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
No,
Kind
so
of
double
leading into that
questions.
Go for it.
slightly. So my question was, so as we've said, we've established all of these answers. We've got to Mars. We've established that we can live on Mars to a certain extent. 100 years' time, maybe 200 years' time.
Yep.
What does Mars look like? Is it do we go to jobs? Do we have vehicles and things? Or is it just purely, how long do you reckon it will take
Right. I think
to become Earth-like
okay.
in terms of our society?
Purely my opinion, we're jumping into the realms of perhaps sci-fi here.
Yeah, of course, because we
don't
don't
kind of think
know.
about it. Kind of got to answer Zak's question first. If you've got people that are being born on Mars, then they're going to be born into a lower gravity, and from the kind of
From the offset.
models
Yeah.
that people have come up with, doing the calculations, that anybody born on Mars would eventually be developing into a much taller creature but not, because there's a lower gravity, so they would be taller and thinner, but they wouldn't be able to return back to Earth because the gravity here they just wouldn't be able to stand up. Yeah. So you're going to have that society on the planet. They might be living within the planet. Yeah, you could be using the planet as a shield while they're mining, and that population might never actually return to Earth. So their whole life, their work, their relationships, their families are all there. They are now the new Martians, and there'd probably be a kind of transition between the people that originally came from Earth. Perhaps if the facility is there for them to go back. But for those that stay, procreate, have children, I'm assuming that given time, that's going to generate its own population.
Yeah, and again, being subjected to such an environment, they would kind of almost evolve differently to how we would.
And also, don't forget, we'll also probably be mining not just Mars, but we'll be looking to mine the asteroid belts and things. Not the asteroid belts, that's asteroid belt. And out there, you've got zero gravity. I mean, you've got huge asteroids, but very low gravity, a bit like being on the moon. So you're still going to have artificial gravity ships. Otherwise, human beings of any sort are going to have big problems with osteoporosis and everything. So there's things are going to be coming backwards and forwards to spaceship Earth, but at the same time, societies and things are going to grow up in their own environment as the human race kind of expands out.
There's biological things that we can't necessarily overcome, like our own physiology.
Yeah,
I mean, have to change.
Things we haven't spoken about. It's the basic human requirements of going to the toilet and things. So you've got a 7-month trip. You've got to go out.
What are you going to do with that?
With
It's
your
going to
stuff.
freeze as soon as it comes out.
When you're on there, I think that was touched upon The Martian, wasn't it? Where they collected all their poop on Mars in bags.
Yes,
and then he used
that's
it
what
as
he
fertilizer.
used. Yes.
So there's that kind of stuff. You need a wee. You got to have a wee. Blah blah blah. All these. The human body is totally 100% designed for living on planet Earth. So,
or were we at one point on Mars?
All right, so that would be that leap of, did we originally come from Mars, crash on Earth,
Because we
cause the decimation of the dinosaurs?
Maybe we can address that in another podcast.
I think we've scratched the surface of that one before, haven't we? Maybe we should come across these kind of podcasts on those ideas, but solely on going to Mars. I would like to see it in my lifetime, and I never thought I would, being that I'm that much older than you guys. But from what Elon Musk is saying, the possibility is there.
It's that thing we've mentioned before about how quickly technology is advancing. It's almost doubling every 10 years. It's just getting more and more. We only went to the moon less than 100 years ago, and now we're looking to go to
Mars.
The next one.
We've sent incredible machines already.
Yeah, we've made it to Mars. We haven't sent a person to Mars.
I mean, even the James Webb Telescope, we're looking now at the edge of the universe.
As it was just before the Big Bang.
So
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And less than 100 years ago. We invented the car maybe just over 100 years ago.
And now we're looking at having electric cars.
AI, artificial intelligence, rockets.
Hydrogen cell cars will be the next thing. I hope they do.
Robots.
I do hope they come out with hydrogen cell cars, because with the way that the fuel bills are going up, how much is it going to cost to charge
maybe the topic for another podcast.
On a more philosophical question.
Yep.
We've destroyed this planet.
Hopefully. Well, what
to a certain extent.
We have destroyed it.
To a certain extent.
Or are we just posing?
We're having this podcast because we're looking to colonise Mars.
Right.
As the human race, what we've done to this planet, do we deserve to then go to another planet and potentially destroy that one as well?
Right. Well, Mars, untouched as far as we know. No life on Mars, even as small as the tiniest bacteria or whatever. But it's pretty wrecked. It's a lump of rock, pretty much, isn't it? So
fair enough.
We'll
go and destroy that as well.
It's just a big asteroid. But surely the point is, if you're going to go to Mars, you're going to Mars in order to try and save planet Earth. If you stay on planet Earth and nobody goes anywhere, then you are going to have to deal with something which nobody is talking about at the moment. No politician would dare talk about it, because it would be the end of their political career. No political party want to talk about it. But that is the population of the planet.
Okay.
Yeah.
The population of the planet.
Just in case you end this podcast.
No. The population of the planet is the big issue, because of consumption of all the resources.
Every issue can be solved
with population.
Population.
So if
we'll start the Now We Know show, political party.
Yeah, so if you're
one,
going to say
one child law.
well, that's the thing. And it seems extreme, but if you're going to have a population that is going to continually expand, which it is,
Yeah, the world isn't getting any bigger.
the world's not getting bigger. As we already said right at the beginning, the resources are finite. So somebody at some point is going to have to start making serious decisions about how we live on the planet, because otherwise you're going to have a planet that is literally decimated with a population that is starving and falling apart because
It's a very difficult moral dilemma.
yeah, that's it exactly. You said it. It's a huge moral dilemma that nobody is talking about.
I think
or
that
wants
was
to even
kind
think
of what I
about.
was implying with my question anyway, about
Yeah.
whether we should go or not.
Yeah,
I think
well,
that's
so
kind of that question.
so you've got that question. If we go, we can take the Blue Origin philosophy and say we go because it's going to be good for the planet, because we can then take all manufacturing off planet. Maybe we can even grow food, hydroponic food, and bring it back to the planet. Who knows? Might seem a bit extreme, but if the population of the planet is going to live comfortably and have room to live and not pollute the planet and to keep global warming under control and everything else, perhaps the answer is to get off planet in order to find resources elsewhere and manufacture. Or we just don't go off planet, and then we've got to deal with the situation here. And the situation here completely and utterly boils down to population.
We could be looking in thousands of years when Mars is being colonised and they're looking back at us with their telescopes. They could look at a world with trillions of humanoid-like creatures on it, looking back and go, "Oh my God, what happened to them?"
Are they going
like
to
us.
treat Earth as like a safari?
They look like us, but they don't seem to be able to
I'm kind of like,
function as a society.
I don't want to bring it down at all, but I don't know if humans. I went to see Brian Blessed on stage, and he and I've mentioned this in one of the podcasts before, but he did say that we really kind of need to reach out. If there's any other life in the universe, is to reach out and say, look, we're really just children and we need help, because ultimately that's kind of the stage we are. We're getting to a point where we've got fantastic technology, but humans and the human psyche is not really evolved along with it. That's why we have these idiots that go to war. When everybody should actually be helping each other as crew.
Yeah, we're all one team.
As one team.
They're trying to drag us back.
So, and when you get things like that happening, then it doesn't look good for the human race in general. If you've got a planet that is resources are being gobbled up and people are needing homes and water supplies are getting thinner and all these things are happening, we're a kind of a creature that tends to screw up its environment.
Well, there's a thing about how we obviously send out radio waves.
I wish we weren't, but it does seem to happen. Look at the oceans covered full of plastic. I mean, I hate it. It's horrible.
They've got like entire
I just go down the
islands of crap
floating around in the Pacific. I drive down the road, and you just drive down pretty much any road in the UK. Look out the window of the car.
Yep.
Rubbish everywhere.
Yeah, because I walked through kind of like a park to get to work, and rubbish everywhere.
Everywhere, and when you've got that kind of attitude where nobody can even be bothered to pick up a bit of rubbish,
it's negligence, isn't it?
What's the outlook? So perhaps the future of humankind is to go to Mars, in a way,
to escape humanity.
But then that could be an issue. That could be an issue because you've actually brought up, as we probably rounding off this conversation and topic for this episode. Wasn't there a film called? Was it Elysium?
Yeah.
Elysium,
So where you have the
another one with
people
Matt Damon
that are with money, scientists and the wealthy go off planet.
That was
they're
one
in
of
a
my
giant ring
questions.
around the
and
planet.
leave all the people that are
The workers.
There's also a
workers
good film
on the planet.
called Don't Look Up with Leonardo DiCaprio
Don't look
and
up.
Jennifer Lawrence. Basically, there's a meteorite heading for Earth and no
Oh,
one believes them.
hang on a minute. Oh, yeah. I
And
watched
then-
that one. Yes, that was
yeah.
a very good.
And then right at the end, it's literally the rich people that get to escape Earth
Yeah.
and go somewhere else.
And
Instantly get eaten up by an alien.
the Jeff, was it the Elon Musk stroke Jeff Bezos type of character got eaten by an alien creature?
I need to see this now.
It's a really good
It's
movie. I
fantastic,
don't want to
yeah.
spoil it. We won't say any more spoilers.
We kind of did spoil
We won't spoil it for Zak. We won't spoil it for.
I'll try and forget that.
Forget that bit. But it's it really does have It's really a statement on society as it is today.
Yeah.
So humans that are listening to this, please start seeing yourselves as the crew of planet Earth. Everybody's got to be a crew member that works together to make the planet we're on.
We're a team.
We're a team.
All of us.
We should stop being violent to everybody. It's really easy. If everybody just started being nice, you wouldn't need police officers. There'd be no crime. But unfortunately, humans aren't like that.
No. There's always want.
It's not like that, and that's why people who are nice and kind are usually the ones that then get scammed by
Unfortunately,
by the people that've got no conscience at all.
Yeah, taking advantage.
So that's where we are. So what have we learned? We've kind of learned, hopefully,
How horrible we are as a society.
how horrible we are as a society and how we need to get our ass to Mars. But on the topic of Mars, it is theoretically possible to get to Mars.
It feels like now, it's in reaching distance.
I think it's in
pardon the
reaching
pun,
distance.
but it feels like it's
We could do
very
it.
close.
Yes.
And I think the simple question of should we do it or shouldn't we do it? Maybe that's a question we should just ask ourselves in the studio right now. Personally, I think we should do it because we will learn an awful lot from that to hopefully help Earth as is now. That's my opinion. What about you guys?
I fear that we will probably end up sending, or it'll be the rich that will go there first if it becomes a planet that's safe to live on and
it becomes that haven. Yeah.
has a similar kind of lifestyle to what we are like on Earth. It will be the rich people. It won't be the
You don't see us having EasyJet flights.
It won't be the working class
No.
going to Mars at all. So we'll be left here. Whether or not we're left in a good condition,
Elysium.
basically, if we're left in a good condition, but I fear that
So Jack,
unfortunately wealth will.
The class divide will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
I can see where
immense.
you're coming from. But do you think that it would be a positive thing or a negative thing? Should we go to Mars? Shouldn't we go to Mars?
That's what I mean. It depends on your current
It
status
depends-
in society.
Okay, as an individual, would you like to see humans go to Mars, or do you think it's a waste of money and resources?
I'm kind of undecided. Again, I just wouldn't like to see the privileged go to Mars and live happily on a new, fresh planet and leave everyone else.
I kind of imagine it would be the scientists that would
Yeah,
be
but
there.
we're talking about commercial flights
Yeah.
to space now,
I suppose.
owned by billionaires.
Well, maybe
We're talking about the actual space companies that are going to take us to Mars.
maybe us common folk will get to have holidays on the moon, but won't quite get to Bermuda, Mars.
But for example,
What
if Elon Musk gets to Mars first,
Yeah.
will he be like the
Emperor.
god
King
of
of
Mars?
well, that's a good thing. I'm assuming there's kind of an international treaty to say that you can't stick your flag in Mars and claim it to your own.
Because
But-
that's a Star War.
But if you're the only person that's there, the company, if you're the only company that's there, then even if the written sort of rule is nobody claims it, you're still going to claim it because you're the only
Yeah,
company
'cause
there.
you're
Because
there.
every single
You hold the
plastic-
cards.
every single recycled cup you use, every recycled thing, everything that's there, it's all got the company logo stamped on it. It doesn't really matter. The company that's
The
there.
company's there. If it's there, it's sustaining itself. It's,
Unless where you get the issue is if you've got a company which has got to Mars and kind of made it theirs and started to terraform or started to create an underground city to mine and produce stuff. What's stopping another continent doing the same? What's stopping China going there? And then would you have the first people there saying, we don't want them landing on the other side of the planet.
How much land do we actually own?
Maybe that would be an issue in future, but who knows?
That's again back down to our human. That's just who we are as humans, aren't we?
Yeah.
We can't get.
So anyway, we haven't
So,
asked
yes.
Zak.
Yeah.
Mars, yes, or Mars, no?
Right. I very much get what Jack just said, and I kind of feel that looking into the far future, that could be an issue.
It will be.
It will be an issue. Initially, though, the aim is to get somebody to Mars.
Yep.
Okay. I would love to see that.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
It would be
I just
a
fear. I
phenomenal
fear,
human
I
achievement.
suppose the three of us, if you're going to just purely say the question is, would you like to see a human get to Mars? Then we'd all
absolutely,
say
yeah.
yes. That's kind of slightly different question to should we or shouldn't
Yeah.
we? For
That's a loaded
For the
question.
benefit of the planet. But interesting you say about the rich going there. That surely would only work if everything's automated. Otherwise, you're still going to need to take people
I'm talking
to
like
do
when
the labour. You're
Well,
not going to rich
yeah,
people
well, you're not
mining
going to
and
send
stuff.
rich people to go and farm. Like that'll all be done by then by, as you said, the scientists, the astronauts, and that sort of
The
thing.
robots.
The
exactly.
robots, the automated systems.
That's when we get there, and the robots have already claimed.
Oh,
like,
no.
actually, you've
Well,
given us a bit of
Funny
land.
you should say that. It might be something that you've already considered. But actually, Mars is the only planet we know which is totally populated at this moment by robots.
So far as we know.
Cybertron.
That's it. There's loads of robots.
It did
on
appear in a Transformers
it.
movie.
There's a load of robots on it. Well, that's what killed the Beagle, wasn't it? Beagle 1, that was the British probe that crash landed. Did it land in that movie? And
Yeah,
one of the
Some-
Cybertrons stood on it. I think.
it's called a Transformer.
Is it? Not Cybertron.
Cybertron's the planet they live on.
Is it? Oh,
Autobot and Decepticon.
Decepticon.
Oh, a Decepticon then.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
Autobots wouldn't do that.
No,
No.
yes, the Decepticons, they're mean.
They're mean Decepticons.
Transformers podcast.
Okay, so there you go. So there you go. Maybe we might end up with Mars being completely populated by a new robotic AI, and they'll kick all the rich people off.
Oh no.
We'll get there, about to land, and they'll go, "Oh, it's gone dark.
All the-
Where are the people?"
All the rich people will be used as slaves for the robots.
There you go.
You torch, don't look up.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun. So there we go. Hopefully we've answered a lot of questions, speculated over some of the information. Maybe we've looked at the
We've covered a lot.
we've looked at the research. I think it is actually possible to get people to Mars, hopefully in a good condition.
Yes.
But I do think the only way they're going to do that is if they send the stuff there first.
Yes.
They've got to send.
Seems
They've got to
like
have the technology to send stuff there first, to set up habitation and all the things that human beings need to live before they go. I don't see that it's going to happen just like astronauts getting in a space rocket and going to Mars. Ain't going to happen.
As we've established, there's so many little challenges that we need to overcome first
Yeah.
before we're anywhere near.
And all those challenges,
Populating
all
it.
those systems, all those things all need backups.
And
in
they
case fail.
all need to work.
Here we go. Brilliant.
Existential.
That's our first episode on Mars. Maybe we shall return.
Hopefully, yeah. When someone does land on Mars,
And,
we can look
oh,
back
Oh
on this.
yeah, that would be really
Yeah,
cool.
we would be able to look back. Hopefully, I'll still be around.
Yes.
You can wheel me in here, you know, and I'll be going.
Oh no, we're gonna have to add a
have they-
wheelchair ramp.
Have they actually got there then?
We
You
have to
might
add
be
a
an
ramp?
AI. You might be a
Oh, what?
brain in a tank.
Oh,
nice.
nice. Oh, nice. Great. Just be bubbling away in the corner of the studio.
Yes, really good opinion there. Good opinion there, boss.
Thanks a lot, son.
Thanks for the contribution.
Okay, so there we go. We're going to leave Mars for the moment. We've taken off. We've assembled our spaceship. We've got there. There you go. Job done.
Yes. So at this point in the show, we always like to look back on some of our previous episodes in a segment that we like to call the Now We Know Show Flashback. And I believe Zak has a Now We Know Show flashback for us.
I hope so. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's not going to work.
I do. We're going to take a stroll back to our geocaching episode.
Oh,
Out
that
and
was
about.
the mega cache or whatever it was.
It was a power trail.
Power trail
LN Powertrain.
on the hottest day of the year.
Anyway, we seem to have a really good response from that episode, and the Now We Know Show would like to announce that we are planning kind of a sub-series of the Now We Know Show called the Now We Know Show Geocaching Trails.
Spin-off series.
Yes.
Right, so we're out and about then.
Yes, that'll be maybe a little shorter episodes where a combination of us, Buzz, Zak, Jack, or either or anyone.
Jack and Buzz.
No, we might have a few guests. Who
Yeah,
knows?
Who knows?
But we're announcing
Well, that
that
sounds fun.
we're going to be doing geocaching trails.
Yeah, as we've discovered, it's very popular.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we
So
have.
if you're listening and you are an expert at geocaching, and you know any good areas that we can find.
Please
'Cause
please recommend.
We are still very new to
Yes.
this geocaching business.
Yes, that's right.
And if you haven't listened to the geocaching episode of the Now We Know Show, go take a look. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
So that's a big Martian Buzz sitting there drinking his Scotch and Coke, waving back at planet Earth goodbye from Buzz.
It's a big artificial plant that probably doesn't taste very nice, but we have to eat it anyway. Goodbye from Jack.
And it's a reptilian subterranean goodbye from Zak.
Oh no, it's all going to go wrong.
We actually did quite well to steer away from aliens
Yes,
once.
there. Didn't mention
And now for the next episode.
it. Anyway, goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
Thank
Bye.
you for listening.